So we've moved from time management onto another really important aspect of working as a team. And it's so important to establish the rules of engagement for the team. Tell us more about that.
I am so often struck by the conversations that managers don't have with their teams early in their tenure as a manager. I'm going to use an example because I think that it is so illustrative of the point. Somebody is promoted to a management role, and yesterday they were a member of the team, and today they are the manager of the team. And so often I've seen clients go months down the track, never having had the conversation with their team that articulates, yesterday I was one of you, today I'm your manager, let's talk about how we're going to work together. And the fact that the conversation is not had means that as they go down the line, so often there are unspoken issues that arise. Now, whether you're a brand new manager taking on the leadership of the team that you used to be a member of, or you are a manager who's come in and has taken on a new team, one of the most powerful early conversations to have is, how shall we work together? And this is what I mean by rules of engagement. Early on in our journey as a team together, a manager and their team need to talk about, how will we make decisions? How often will we meet? When we meet, what do we need to talk about? Every so often, one of us is going to let the team down. How are we going to handle it? How is the team going to handle it? What do we expect from our team mates if they've made a commitment but circumstances have changed and they can no longer meet that commitment? Do they just allow the deadline to whiz by, or do we expect them to say something? So negotiating or discussing or collaborating around the rules of engagement early on in our existence as a team is very powerful. And of course, then things will go wrong, which may alert us to the fact that there might be something we haven't talked about or we haven't anticipated, in which case it's perfectly acceptable to put the issue on the table and ask, how shall we deal with this thing as a team? Now, if I can back up a little bit, one of the most useful tools to use as a guideline for negotiating the rules of engagement is your company's values. If you go to your company's values and you ask yourselves as a team, what does this value tell us about how we need to deal with problem solving? What does this value tell us about how we need to deal with honesty and transparency? What that does, in fact, is it brings those values to life in a way that's very real to the team. And it also enables you as a team to clearly articulate what your expectations are of each other. And it's never a once and done conversation. The advantage of raising it early is that whenever there are problems, and there will be, you can come back to the conversation and you can either be saying, we didn't discuss this thing, so how shall we tackle it in future? Or we did discuss this thing and we agreed that we were going to deal with it in this way. How come we didn't do that? And at least then it creates an environment for the team to, again, talk about it.
I think what's so important for me is how you've spoken about clarifying expectations. from all members of the team around delivery and how the team goes about doing its work, so that you can come back to those conversations. So you've given us quite a few how-tos and suggestions, and you've also, in an article that you've written on this topic that we'll give a link to below this video, given a whole lot of examples of questions that you can ask. What's so important about using a questioning approach?
Questions invite, there's certain real obvious aspects to this. Questions invite people to think. Questions create an opportunity for people to persuade themselves. Questions give the team leader the opportunity to hear how team members are thinking. If you don't know how team members are thinking, how can you trust the quality of their thinking when you're not there? How can you anticipate how people will handle things? Using questions also creates the opportunity for team members to collaborate around issues. So much of our work is done in conversation. We talked in a previous video about how important it is for managers to be able to take feedback, and I think I probably made the claim that it's one of the most important leadership skills. Well, let me tell you, the most important leadership skill, far and away above everything else, is the skill of asking good questions. In the absence of good questions, people's thinking is rigid and it's formulaic, and it is not sufficiently exploratory. It's only because of the quality of the questions that we ask that we are able to bring our very best thinking and our very best selves to the work that we do.
It sounds to me as though you are speaking indirectly about creating learning teams that can learn.
It's absolutely about creating learning teams. You've used the expression VUCA, volatile, unpredictable, chaotic, and
complex and uncertain.
Complex and uncertain, which means that
ambiguous.
Volatile,
uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Right. Which means that we live in an environment where there is way more that we don't know than that we know. And so we are working things out every day. And it's in the working out that we are learning. There are no absolute right answers. And what happens today is not necessarily what will happen tomorrow. And we have to be learning all the time in order to keep up, for a start, in order to stay relevant, in order to innovate, in order to anticipate what the world is going to require from us. If we don't create an environment in which it is safe to learn, we are creating enormous risks for ourselves as individual managers and leaders, for our teams and for our organizations. So here's another of my absolute opinions. I really don't think we have a choice. We have to create learning environments, because we will quite literally adapt or die.
Sure. So thank you. And using a coaching style of management certainly does that.
It does indeed.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.